Welcome, I'm Geeta Mohan and you're watching India Today Global. Now, a day after the United Nations Security Council adopted a US drafted resolution backing President Donald Trump's Gaza plan, Saudi Arabia Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, also known as MBS, makes his first visit to the White House since Washington Post journalist Jamal Khashoggi was killed and dismembered by Saudi agents in Turkey. Now, the Crown Prince last visited the United States of America 7 years ago. The meeting between MBS and President Trump is being seen to set the stage for multi-billion-dollar business deals, nuclear agreements, and an effort to persuade Saudi Arabia to join the Abraham Accords and thereby normalize relations with U.S. ally Israel. The U.S. President also had a bilateral meeting with the Crown Prince and Prime Minister of Saudi Arabia. Apart from hosting a bilateral lunch for the Saudi guests, the President and the First Lady will also host dinner for them. Trump is yet to hold a state visit in his second term. In spite of global condemnation in 2018, when the Crown Prince was linked to the killing of Khashoggi, President Trump has always maintained strategic relations with Saudi's de facto ruler. Trump's predecessor, Joe Biden, who had vowed to make Saudi Arabia a pariah during his election campaign, visited Riyadh and fist-bumped with the Crown Prince, changing his tact and policy. Though MBS assumes all day-to-day responsibility, Saudi Arabia's head of state is his 89-year-old father, King Salman. Before the visit, President Trump had announced that the U.S. will sell F-35 jets to the Saudi kingdom. Saudi Arabia is planning an investment summit at the Kennedy Center, coinciding with the Crown Prince's visit. Earlier, Saudi Arabia had promised to invest $600 billion in U.S. Trump visited Saudi Arabia in May, his first state visit in his second term. During the visit, he had brought along prominent American businessmen and signed several agreements. According to sources, Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, visited Riyadh last week for talks with the Crown Prince ahead of this meeting. Saudi Arabia has been a staunch backer of a separate state for Palestine. Following ceasefire between the Hamas and Israel, brokered by the U.S. and the UNSC adoption of Trump's Gaza peace plan, the meet is also crucial to seal Saudi support for Trump's Gaza plan. Another geopolitical agenda on the table is the stability of Sudan. It sees Sudan's stability crucial for its own security in Saudi Arabia. Besides geopolitics, Trump's personal interests linked to Saudi Arabia are also crucial. The Trump Organization, run by President Donald Trump's son, Donald Trump Jr., and Eric Trump, is involved in major real estate projects in Saudi Arabia. Kushner's investment fund, Affinity Partners, has also raised billions of dollars in capital from Saudi Arabia. And my colleague Rohit Sharma joins me from Washington, D.C. on this and more. Rohit, we see the visuals have come in. There are visuals of them not just meeting, but also the Wall of Fame is what President Trump was showing the Crown Prince. But in terms of deliverables, what is expected?
Well, I think there are four important things, Geeta. First, as you pointed out, it's the economic and investment agenda. It's talking about the $600 billion that the Saudi prince has committed to investing in America. Then there's the Defense and Security Pact, where the U.S.-Saudi security guarantee, which is trying to make sure that the region is stable. The civil nuclear cooperation will also be an agenda. We've seen that Saudi Arabia wants a clear pathway to developing its own energy capabilities under U.S. oversight. So that's going to be another important thing. And then, as you pointed out, the regional issues, Sudan is going to be topic of conversation, maintaining peace, especially when it comes in the region with Qataris. And I think those are the important things. But also, we saw when the both leaders met, we saw 3 F-16s and F-35s, flying over the South Lawn. So that's going to be one of the primary drivers for President Trump to make sure that he's able to sell as many as things to the Crown Prince, and making sure that this visit results into more investment for Americans, because that's the point that President Trump has been wanting to make since he got elected.
Well, Rohit, we see the optics there. The optics are fine, but we'll have to wait and see what happens once the meeting is over, and details and the finality of what really is going to be the outcome of this meeting is really out in the open. And for that, you can watch Rohit Sharma's show, Desi from DC, on India Today Global. Thank you so much, Rohit, for joining us for now.
Thank you.
Now, the U.S. House of Representatives is set to vote for the forced release of Epstein files, which have been haunting the administration since Trump's return to the White House. After attempts to delay the release of files of the sex offender of Jeffrey Epstein, President Trump has urged the House Republicans to vote for the release of the files. This could pose a major challenge for Trump, though he has not been accused of any wrongdoing. This is now a report by Mahashweta Lala.
The haunting of Epstein files is far from over. Ahead of the House voting for the forced release of the Jeffrey Epstein files, the convicted sex offender by the U.S. Justice Department, President Donald Trump has called on the House Republicans to vote for the release of Epstein files. Calling the entire Epstein case hoax, Trump blamed the Democrats for using the case as an excuse for the shutdown.
What I just don't want Epstein to do is detract from the great success of the Republican Party, including the fact that the Democrats are totally blamed for the shutdown. You know, they cost our country hundreds of billions of dollars with that, at a lot of inconvenience. So I'm for I don't. They can do whatever they want. We'll give them everything. Sure, I would. Let the Senate look at it. Let anybody look at it. But don't talk about it too much, because honestly, I don't want to take it away from us. It's really a Democrat problem. The Democrats were Epstein's friends, all of them, and it's a hoax. The whole thing is a hoax, and I don't want to take it away from really the greatness of what the Republican Party has accomplished over the last period of time.
Earlier, Trump in a post said that there was nothing to hide and he does not care if the files were released. He also linked prominent personalities like former President Bill Clinton, Reid Hoffman and Larry Summers for having alleged links with the sex offender. Meanwhile, the U.S. Treasury Secretary Larry Summers said he will step back of all the public commitments after Trump ordered the Justice Department to investigate Democrats with ties to Jeffrey Epstein.
Just very frustratingly to us, the Democrats are delaying that work even further with a political show vote. They're forcing a political show vote on the Epstein files. Democrats had every one of the Epstein files in their possession for the 4 long years of the Biden administration. The Biden Department of Justice had the files the entire time. And not a single one of the people who are so loud and animated right now, they never said anything about it for all those 4 years.
Trump also said that he would sign the bill if it made through the Senate. If the Epstein files are released, this would be a major challenge for Trump, as his name finds mention in a few emails of Epstein, released earlier by the House Oversight Committee. Though as of now, Trump has not been accused of any wrongdoing in the case, and the president claims that he had cut off ties with Epstein a long time ago. The president also had a feud with longtime ally Marjorie Taylor Greene over the release of these files. On one hand, Trump withdrew his support and endorsement to Congresswoman Greene, while she apologized for her role in what she described as toxic politics. Meanwhile, Jeffrey Epstein's victims have urged that the correspondences should be released.
So, speaking as one of the victims, I beg you to release these files once and for all. I mean, there is no valid reason for refusing to do so. So you can't claim that it is to protect the victims. I mean, when it is the victims, myself, and the victims that have been calling for the files to be released.
The House is likely to vote Tuesday evening. The bill needs to get clearance in the Senate, where Democrats have a 47-seat minority. They would need the help of 13 Republicans to clear a filibuster, should the Republicans block the bill.
The last 6 weeks.
With Mahashweta Lala, Bureau Report, India Today.
The UN Security Council voted to adopt a US-drafted resolution endorsing President Donald Trump's plan to end the war in Gaza and authorizing an international stabilization force for the Palestinian enclave. The resolution passed with 14 votes in favor and 0 votes against. UN ambassadors of Russia and China abstained, complaining that the resolution does not give the UN a clear role in the future of Gaza. Israel and Hamas agreed last month to the first phase of Trump's 20-point plan for Gaza, a ceasefire in their 2-year war and a hostage release deal. The text of the resolution says member states can take part in the Trump-chaired Board of Peace envisioned as a transitional authority that would oversee reconstruction and economic recovery of Gaza. It also authorizes the International Stabilization Force, which would ensure a process of demilitarizing Gaza, including by decommissioning weapons and destroying military infrastructure. Hamas, in a statement, reiterated that it will not disarm and argued that its fight against Israel continues. Trump celebrated the vote as a moment of true historic proportion in a social media post. An uneasy calm prevails in Bangladesh, a nation shaken by protests and clashes after the country's International Crimes Tribunal handed a death sentence to former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. Hasina, who has been living in exile in India since fleeing Bangladesh last August, was found guilty of crimes against humanity, charged with ordering violence and failing to prevent atrocities during the student protests of July 2024. Security forces have now taken control of most major centers after at least 2 people lost their lives in deadly violence. The Awami League, Hasina's party, had called for a nationwide shutdown in defiance of the verdict. From exile, Sheikh Hasina has called the tribunal's judgment rigged by an unelected Yunus-led government. She insists she was denied a fair chance to defend herself. Meanwhile, Dhaka has formally requested New Delhi to hand over Hasina under the bilateral extradition treaty. So far, Ministry of External Affairs has issued only a brief statement saying it has noted the tribunal's verdict and as a close neighbor will continue to engage constructively with Bangladesh. After the stunning death sentence to Sheikh Hasina, her party has now declared civil war, calling the trial a farce. Awami League spokesperson Nijum Majuddar, who spoke to India Today, spoke on the extradition treaty and now how shielding her from what he calls a tribunal of political vendetta is absolutely essential. The problems for Sheikh Hasina will not end anytime soon. It is only going to get bigger, graver, and there could be implications for India. How are you looking at the extradition treaty between New Delhi and Dhaka, and how could that impact Sheikh Hasina's stay in New Delhi?
Well, before going to that topic, I would say that Bangladesh is in the verge of civil war. I would say formally the civil war has begun today, because I'm telling it for quite some time that Bangladesh is actually facing a civil war, and it has started today, if I'm not wrong. Number one. And number two, as you said, the extradition treaty with India. India has a discretionary power. If you go through the whole treaty, you will see that India has their own discretion, and if there is any political vendetta, political trial or tribunal, or it is a tribunal of, like as I said, political vendetta, India will is not in a position to hand over any person to the authority, because obviously it is a political tribunal and India has a discretion on that.
Now, Britain is pushing through its toughest asylum overhaul in decades, making refugee status temporary, fast-tracking deportations, and threatening visa bans as immigration dominates politics. Supporters call it necessary. Critics call it cruel. Is this reform or a path to deeper division? Here's a report by Sheikh Hasina.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker.
Britain has announced its toughest asylum overhaul in decades, a dramatic move aimed at tightening borders and countering the rise of Reform UK. Interior Minister Shabana Mahmood says refugee status will now be temporary. Deportations will speed up and migrants will need to wait 20 years before setting permanently. The UK is even threatening visa bans on Angola, Namibia and the DRC unless they take back illegal migrants and criminals.
A grant of refugee status will last 2.5 years, not 5. It will be renewed only if it is impossible for a refugee to return home. Permanent settlement will now come at 20 years, not 5.
I want to put...
Prime Minister Keir Starmer argues that current system has become a pull factor, far more lenient than Europe. But critics, including Labour lawmakers, warn the new rules fuel division and may never pass. The government also wants stricter interpretations of the European Convention on Human Rights, limiting family ties and making deportations harder to block. Mahmood says the reforms are needed to stop dark forces exploiting public anger. Human rights groups say they punish people who have already lost everything. As migration dominates British politics, this battle is only heating up. With Sheikh Hasina, Bureau Report, India Today.
Ahead of next month's Russia-India annual summit, External Affairs Minister Jaishankar met his Russian counterpart Sergei Lavrov in Moscow, and Russian Security Council Secretary Nikolai Patrushev met National Security Advisor Ajit Doval in New Delhi and called on Prime Minister Narendra Modi. The meetings come as both sides prepare for President Vladimir Putin's expected visit to India on the 4th and 5th of December. During the meeting in Moscow, Jaishankar said India-Russia relations have long been a factor of stability in international relations, stressing that the partnership's growth is in the interest of both countries and the global order. He said the talks focused on preparations for the 23rd annual summit and key issues shaping the global environment. He told Lavrov that the summit agenda is under active review and that both sides are working to achieve concrete deliverables. Jaishankar is in Moscow for the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, or the SCO, heads of government meeting. He's representing India. Jaishankar said India and Russia will examine the complex global situation with the openness that has always characterized our ties. And I quote him there, noting that the discussions include the Ukraine conflict, developments in West Asia, that's the Middle East, and situation in Afghanistan. Putin's visit comes amid President Donald Trump's crackdown on Russia-India energy ties and Moscow's war in Ukraine. But his significant statement was on terrorism. Listen in to what Jaishankar had to say.
We will also be exchanging views on the complex global situation with the openness that has always characterized our ties. This includes the Ukraine conflict, as also the Middle East and Afghanistan, amongst others. India supports recent efforts towards establishing peace. We hope that all parties approach that goal constructively. An early cessation of the conflict and ensuring of an enduring peace is in the interest of the entire international community. India-Russia ties have long been a factor of stability in international relations. Its growth and evolution is not only in our mutual interest, but also in that of the world.
That's all on this edition of India Today Global.